Hi, my name is Cameron Four, and I'm a field technologist with Omnissa. This is part 3 of our series, Getting Started with Intelligence for Horizon. And in this video, we're going to be covering how to go about designing dashboards. So to get started, what I want to do is look at some various features of dashboard design, how I typically walk customers through understanding what is a good design and what aspects should you think about incorporating in your dashboard before you start building them. So to do that, I'm going to jump into the Horizon Operations Overview dashboard, and I want to talk through some of the features that the dashboard has and how you can incorporate some of these design features into your dashboards as you start building them out. So usually when I'm talking to customers about building a new dashboard, the first thing we need to decide is what is the purpose of the dashboard. In this example, because we're calling it the Horizon Operations Overview dashboard, the purpose is very targeted at looking at what are the feature functionalities of Horizon that we need to monitor to get good operational insight to how it's running. So since that's the overall goal of what we want to do, the next thing we need to look at is what type of information do we need to answer those questions. So I kind of think of it as, all right, so I have my purpose. My purpose is operational overview. And then I need to decide what type of information is going to go into that dashboard that will give me the insight that I need to answer operational concerns that I might have around Horizon. So one of the first things that I do is I like to provide high-level information up top that's targeted to the topic. So in this case, you'll see we have information around sites, edges, UAGs, connection servers, and really what these are doing is just providing counts of information so I understand from an operational perspective, how much infrastructure do we really have in terms of Horizon, so I understand what is it that we actually need to monitor. The next thing that I usually want to know from a Horizon perspective is, at least if I'm trying to determine, are things functioning correctly, or how many sessions are coming into the environment. So again, if I'm thinking about this from a service level aspect, how many sessions gives me insight into, do I have the expected number of people online? If I'm expecting 1,000 people, do we have 1,000 people? Or are we at least close to that number? That will allow me to know is our service working properly, or am I about to get flooded with a lot of calls about users not being able to connect into Horizon. In contrast, right, so if I come in and I see that my session counts are really low, or maybe they're really low for a particular site, that also gives me insight that, hey, maybe there is something wrong with my service and I need to figure out what's going on with that site. Now, I'm not going to cover every single widget in that particular detail, but that's how we kind of define the question in terms of what type of information do I need to know. And then we need to look at, okay, well, how do we go about answering those questions? So again, just quickly going through these, other operational insights or concerns might be around agent data. Do we have a lot of errors? Do we have issues with login times increasing higher? Do we have UAGs not functioning, connection servers not functioning? Do we have connection servers that are spiking CPUs? All of these are high-level risk around Horizon, and these are things that I care about operationally so that if they are happening, I can see it and I know that I need to take action on it. So that's why these particular pieces of information are in this dashboard, because they go to answering the overall question, what do I need to see from an operational perspective so that if something is wrong in my service, I can take quick action and I can get high-level visibility. So again, that's the basic premise behind how to think about building the dashboard is, think about, again, what's the purpose of the dashboard? What types of information do you think you're going to need to define and properly answer the question, and that ultimately leads back to the overall purpose. So let's look at a couple other examples. So again, that was from an operational perspective. What about an application perspective? Well, if we start thinking about applications, I might need to know different types of information. So again, if you look at the top, I have my high-level information up front. It's going to be around how many apps have good versus bad scores. Now in this environment, all the applications have good scores, none of them are bad. But again, it gives me that type of operational insight, so I know that at least from an app's perspective that, hey, I don't really have any application concerns that I need to dig into too much right now. Now, beyond performance or just app experience, we also have things around app crashes. So again, if I'm seeing that certain applications are going to start crashing a lot, that might be of utmost importance that I need to know before I start getting into building my dashboard. So again, this all lends itself to getting into defining the types of questions that I want to know. And then when I start to build the dashboard, I'm going to start looking for this targeted data. Other examples of information might be, okay, well, which apps are being used the most? And maybe I want to trend those over time. So again, that allows me to, at least from a functionality perspective, which apps are my user base using the most, which ones are being used the least. That could be important information to me. I might also care about, what types of application launches by user. And again, your questions are going to vary. Like, these are just high-level examples of what types of questions I might want to answer. And given these dashboards and some of the examples that we're going through, this can kind of help you start to build the foundation of, okay, well, if I'm going to build my own custom dashboard, what types of questions am I trying to answer? Because again, that is the purpose of having the widget in the dashboard, is we're ultimately trying to get to answering the questions that we have around our Horizon service. So just some examples of types of questions we can answer. Are there applications with greater than 30% CPU? How many are greater than 50? How many have poor CPU scores? Maybe I want to trend which applications have the most CPU globally over time. That could be important information to know. The same would be true for memory. So if I'm trying to figure out, hey, in my Horizon environment, it looks like memory increased 30%. Well, which apps had the most significant increase in memory over the last 14 days, 20 days, 28 days, right? Those are going to be the types of questions that you may have. And so the data is definitely there to explore, to get into, building out the widget so that we can answer those types of questions. Now, in this video, again, we're focusing on thinking about the questions, thinking about design. But if you notice, the common trend for the design is high-level information up front, just to know, is there a problem that I need to dig into? And then deeper, richer, detailed information as I go down. Now, some of this is around utilization from an app perspective, looking at it from which apps are used the most, which users use the most apps. And then we get into application performance. And then it's basically, I'm starting with CPU, then I'm getting into memory, and then maybe I just want to get into utilization. So which apps are used the most by various users, or from an application perspective, which applications this had the most total launches in the last 30 days. So again, every dashboard is going to have its own purpose, but it helps from a best practice perspective to make sure you organize it in a way that you prioritize the most necessary information up top, and then get into the granular details and just have a consistent flow as you go down the dashboard. Just to show one more example before we conclude this particular video. Let's see. So again, we talked about operational insights, we talked about application insights. In this dashboard, we're just simply looking at user experience scores. So again, up top, you'll notice how we prioritize trending information. How many users have poor scores versus good and neutral? What percentage of users are poor performance? So again, at the top, what this tells me is there something I need to dig into further? Okay, so again, the high priority information up front, and then I break down further down the dashboard into various categories of what could cause poor performance. Some of it's going to be around high CPU usage. How many users are greater than 90%, 5% CPU? How many users have good versus bad scores? And in this environment, thankfully, they're all good performance scores. And then next I go back to memory. So just like in apps where we had CPU, memory, we do the exact same for the user. So it's CPU, then memory. We break it down by the exact same categories. Again, we focus on the performance categories that are most important to us. And then we determine what are going to be our filters. So for example, here you can see our filter for this widget is, do we have any users with greater than 10 millisecond latency within the last, I guess that's 7 days. So again, this is how we've prioritized the information, we've organized it. And then when we go through building out the dashboard, and we'll use these as examples, this is the type of information we're going to put into the dashboard, but using this consistent design. And then finally, once we get outside of the Horizon infrastructure or guest OS performance metrics, then finally we look at connectivity. Now, you may choose that you prioritize protocol connectivity up top and OS level activity at the bottom. All of these are your design choices. There's no right or wrong there. But again, the idea is to be consistent and just have a very common flow that everything is organized well together so you can easily find the information that you're looking to. So this really concludes our overview of looking at good dashboard design. And this is what we're going to be using as a starting point for our next video for building out the overall dashboards. So thank you for watching this video, and please watch the next video to get additional information on building out the dashboard. Thank you.